call games off inevitably. So you're gonna have to have some contingency in there to move that back even further.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable point to add in. What's St. David have to say, Tim?
Yeah, David Powell at St. David 2911 says the longer we stretch it out, the more chance we have of actually getting to see a live game. Yeah, there is that.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
What did Carson have to say, Sarah?
Carson said we should play 36 games to recover the losses the clubs made in lockdown. Hashtag you don't pay slaves.
That's a throwback to when Carson was on the show, I think, there. Alan, who have you got next?
Sean Bruiser664 says 22 is the only one that makes sense. What are the extra fixtures in a 24-round season? Also, why not have a 22-round season that finishes mid-December with less midweek rounds?
David K at DKP, one of our friends who joined us for an episode during lockdown, said end date in January so we get the coveted Christmas games back. If they were that
but
coveted,
they're only coveted in Yorkshire. Lancashire doesn't care about Christmas games. I've learnt that.
It's because Lancashire's got Premier League football clubs. Well, the North West has got Premier League football clubs. Who's next?
Tom Andrews said shorter season gives us the best chance of returning to normal next year. Either way, loop fixtures will be chopped, be it this season or next. With the Championship set not to resume, 12 franchises next year, with the Championship to battle for the final 2 places. I mean, yeah, I think it's a fair point about the loop fixtures that they're going to have to go one of these years, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to need some space before the World Cup, aren't we? We need some breathing room and we need some players that are rested for the World Cup. So how we fit that in, if it's a case of we don't start properly till end of March, perhaps have a longer break in between and then have a shortened season. That's one round, but I think, you're going to...
Well, is that going to even give them a break, Tim? Because they're just going to get into pre-season, aren't they? How much break is that going to give them?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I guess, when does Easter fall next year? Is it a case of, you even coming back for Easter? But then can you squeeze all the fixtures in and the Challenge Cup? And when is the Challenge Cup going to be next year?
Who else?
Is another question entirely.
Yeah. What did Alan Walker have to say? Because I think he's probably gone for a radical solution, hasn't he? No doubt.
Yeah, he says 22 games end on November the 22nd, but 22 games for all, not 23 for some, 24 for some, and 25 for the Dragons, i.e. restart from 0 points. After 22, play rep games, e.g. Yorkshire, Wales, Cumbria, Ireland, Scotland, and even Lancashire, but not the Exiles. I like the Exiles. I thought it was fun. I've still got the jersey somewhere. All 3 plans have big fucking problem. How can the Dragons play 3 extra games in a shortened season? Especially as they have to spend 14 days quarantining every time they come into the UK. Especially as they didn't call up a single game before. Any start needs to have the same number of games to play. They'll use integrity of the season, but it's really 2 seasons. Wigan should already have the hub cap and start points again. Fucking idiotic Super League. I hope Bernie kills someone. I'll help.
How are we going to get 22 rounds in from the middle of August to any point in November? The whole premise of this is built upon we've already played 7 games. Okay, Catalans haven't. But, and it was stupid that Catalans was the game scheduled when St. Helens had the World Club Challenge. Everyone said that anyway, way back when, because there's less chance to fit that in midweek if you had to, because of the fact that they're an international side. But that's just no. Even though it would mean us getting a trophy, it's a trophy that would mean nothing. So no. We finished on John Scotter, who said, my humble views on the secret leaked restart options. Option 3, 28 games and finish in January, while have the benefit of offering bumper Boxing Day Derby gates, failed to be practical, as such a late finish would have a major impact on the 2021 season timings and leave no time between the end of season and the World Cup starting. Player burnout. Option 2, 24 games with its 2 semi-loop games would cause lopsided fixture lists with cries of unfair depending on who your team got. Clubs may argue they need the match day revenue from the one additional home game, though. And then option 1, 22 games is the most sensible option. All play twice, so the least likely to be the choice of the RFL. The shortened season allows clubs the chance to catch up on outstanding fixtures and still allow a proper off-season. So, generally, even in the comments as well as the voting, option 1 is the most supported. Let's sort of do a round sort of trip on how we sort of feel on these ones. Sarah, let's start with you. Are you in the same camp as your dad there? Option 1 seems to be the best one.
I think so, because the longer you go as well into the winter, the more chance you've got of having other matches postponed as well. You know, if you're going into the end of January, you're likely to get 2 or 3 matches, you know, maybe 2 or 3 weekends where you can't play.
Yeah.
Whereas at least if you're finishing in end of November, you're unlikely to get horrendous weather before that, really, aren't you?
I can't remember the last international game that was called off for bad weather played in November.
And actually, some of them have been quite nice. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, not nice weather, but
drier than
horrendous.
October.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Joshua when Joshua had pneumonia, we went to a test match. Oh, it must have been 4 weeks after he'd been in hospital with pneumonia, and I didn't feel it was like a risk because the weather wasn't that bad.
So option 1 for Sarah. Alan, what about yourself?
Yep. Agree. For me, option 1 is the only option that really should be under consideration. My only question is about timings in terms of the number of midweek games. I think we all, you know, pretty much there was a universal agreement about the lopping off of the loop fixtures was the best thing to do, and Model 1 does do that. Yeah. So let's do that.
Tim?
Yeah, I'm going to sound boring, but I'm very much team 1. The only slight thing that I like about option 3 is that it would mean the Challenge Cup final very close to my birthday, so it'd be my birthday weekend. And seeing as we're going full rugby league and it's full self-interest, you know, that's kind of appealing. The option 1, having it on October 25th, is my sister's birthday, and I just don't think I'm going to get away with that. So
you won't have a dog in the fight, so it's all right, Tim.
Yeah, but he's finally got an option this year. He thought this was going to be his year where he could go to the Challenge Cup final, and he only lives round the corner.
I can walk. I can be there in 20 minutes.
Everything's conspiring against him. I'm option 1 as well. You know, I think we all said this from the very off, didn't we? It seemed like the most sensible way to go. I kind of have some sympathy with where Sean's saying, why not just extend option 1 but into December? If we can go into December, why go into December with these extra fixtures? Which I kind of see the point of, but really the fundamental thing for me here is the player contracts.
Yeah.
And I know, like, not that many players will be off contract in the grand scheme of things. You know, most squads will have 80% of their squad under contract. But what if you brought a new player in? Do you know what I mean? Like, clubs. So you're already unbalancing it with the fixtures. Then you're unbalancing it with some teams can play at the home stadium, some teams can't. Then you're unbalancing it with some teams will get certain games in front of crowds and not other games in front of crowds, and that might benefit things one way or another. We've seen how home advantage disappears in the Bundesliga when there's no crowds in. So, you know, how's that going to work out? Are everyone going to have the same amount of games home and away in front of crowds and that sort of stuff? There's going to be problems there. And then someone could bring in some extra players for the last 2 games of the season and win a grand final off the back of it. It doesn't seem...
Suppose Liam Farrell signs for St Helens from the 1st of December or whatever. You know, he signed his contract unbeknownst to us, and he signed his contract and he's off to St Helens. Now we get to, you know, when do we get to? We go for Model 3. Well, what are St Helens going to say for, those last 3 months? Yeah, that's fine. Stay at Wigan, Liam. That's not a problem. We don't mind. Or are they going to say, get yourself over here now?
I think they're going to have to. Obviously, that's a ridiculous example. He's not going to break my heart like that. But they're going to have to. Or like Hull FC, for example.
Or even...
It's widely recognised that Albert Kelly's not going to be staying at Hull FC after his contract ends.
Exactly.
That only longer is going to be gone, right? So what if you get to... We play into December and January, and you've not signed replacements for them yet, or what have you, or those replacements aren't fit because they've not been playing in Australia. They've had their pre-season, their off-season or whatever. They stopped playing in October. So these people come in. You get injuries. Ferramo gets injured. Swift gets injured. Connor gets injured, and then all of a sudden, you've got vital parts of your team missing, and you can't replace them because you've already signed your players for next year. It's just they're not ready to play yet because they're still in Australia or something. It just seems too problematic to have it overlapping the contract end period.
Yeah, and
that's as well as the neatness of option one. That's the main thing that I think needs to be pulled out of this.
And isn't it that most contracts finish on the 20th of November? Isn't that the thing somewhere?
30th of November is the official sort of end of year for rugby league.
Yeah,
and that's
so
written into the operational rules as well.
But it's like, okay, so take my, Liam Farrell going to St Helens. Suppose option 2, we have a grand final of Wigan against St Helens. Liam Farrell's, played very well all season. He's your match winner in the grand final, and then St Helens turn around and say, well, I'm sorry, his contract ended 13 days ago. He can't play for you.
It seems the weirdest, clunkiest. And also, are these Christmas fixtures that in demand? Or is it just people harking back to a bygone era again?
The thing is, we've been away from these Christmas fixtures for 25 years now. So, that's a whole generation plus that hasn't experienced them.
My Christmas plans are all kind of similar every single year, and I tell you what, I'd have fucking trouble at home if I start putting rugby league into those plans.
Yeah, but I mean, putting Mark's domestic arrangements to one side for a second. If we all know, those of us who've written options appraisal papers, you start with one thing that you want to happen, and you make sure that one looks the most attractive. And then you put 2 other options in there that are complete no-hopers, and then you make sure that the one you want happens.
But which one of these options do you think is that first option, Alan? I think the first option is in terms of what you said, is option 3 for the clubs, because they don't want to lose games. But they're not thinking straight. They're thinking that having those games run on through January is going to bring them the same revenue as if those games ran through this summer. I don't believe that to be the case.
No, well, that is fantasy land because you're not going to get the same turning up on Good Friday as you do on Boxing Day. Never in a million years. So
not now, not after 25 years.
No, because I really like a game on Boxing Day. I've been to several over the last few years, but I'm also well aware that the game's moved on and they're used as a midwinter distraction. They're not to be taken very seriously as contests. So I can't really see it being a Saints Wigan derby or the Hull derby or whatever on Boxing Day. I can't see that happening personally.
Then the other fundamental...
back in the day, Christmas Day fixtures they used to be, not Boxing Day.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, I was going to say as well. Like the amount of years that we actually played as Boxing Day as a regular fixture is probably about less than us not playing on not playing at Christmas at all, because Christmas Day, like you say, used to be the standard day for so many years. Tim, the other big thing about option 1 that makes it appealing is it has less impact on 2021 and that key event at the end of the year, the World Cup, and England's potential to compete well in that World Cup. Do you think that's something that everyone's got to keep in mind as well, rather than the clubs thinking, how do I scrape the most pennies out of my already poor fan base, isn't the game going to be better with a good World Cup?
The way the game is going to make the most money long term is by a well attended and England winning the World Cup. Ultimately, therefore, everybody